Hi, and thanks for checking out my channel. My name is Hannah, and this is Jar of Fireflies. Here you'll find content all about my life as an Orthodox Jewish homeschooling mother of 3. And today, I get to answer all your questions. Okay, you guys sent me so many questions when I asked you guys for questions last question and answer video. I am so excited. These are amazing. All right, I have so many questions. We may have to split this into 2 parts, but I will get to all of them. So, all right, let's just dive right in and get started. Okay, Tracy asked, am I a convert or was I born Jewish? All right, I am a convert. I converted to Judaism. I converted Reform in my early to mid 20s, and then I converted Orthodox about 7-8 years later, right around the time that I turned 30. I will do a whole separate video on that entire story. I just haven't had time to sit down and really focus on that yet. It is a long story. I want to give it the attention that it deserves so that you guys get all the fun details. Tracy also asked a part 2 to her question, and it was, if I am a convert, which we just established that I am, did I find it hard to adjust to the laws? Yes and no. So I came to Orthodox Judaism in a very slow process. So I had a lot of time to slowly start taking on things. And that's kind of what led me to Orthodox Judaism anyhow, was the fact that as I began taking on more things, observing more laws, I found my experience with Judaism to be so much more. And I loved that and I wanted more. So in that aspect, yes, it was easy, but there were definitely difficult parts to it, like keeping kosher when your friends and family don't keep kosher, or trying to observe Shabbat when you don't live in a community. So there were definitely a lot of things that were hard and some things that are still hard. Covering my hair every day isn't always easy. It's fun, it's pretty, I do like it, but every day isn't always easy. There are some days that are harder than others. There's some days that I still want Taco Bell. Those are days that I make tacos at home. So yes, sometimes observing the laws are hard. Most of the time, it's just part of my life right now. So for the most part, it's pretty simple. It's just ingrained into my life at this point. It's what my family does. It's what most of my friends do. It's just kind of how I live life. So it's pretty easy. But some days there are challenges. Okay, so many of you asked, how did I meet my husband? Okay, so here's the story on that. I had recently moved into an Orthodox community. This was during my conversion process. And my rabbi arranged for me to have lunch a couple doors down from my new house that Friday night for Shabbat. So this was like my first Orthodox Shabbat Friday night dinner. I was very nervous. I almost didn't go. I was thinking of 100 excuses of not going, but I went. So as soon as I walk in, I see these 3 guys off to the side in the dining room poring over this book of Gemara. And one of them is now my husband, but I see him and I'm just like, oh, that's exactly what I want. Like that's him. But then the next thought in my head immediately after was, oh, he's probably married with 7 children. I'm not even going to look at him. And I go off and chat with the ladies in the other room. Come to find out during the meal, he is in fact single. He was definitely interested in me. I was definitely interested in him. However, it was horrible timing. I was in the middle of my conversion process. I did not want to date. That can complicate your conversion process. I didn't want there ever being any appearance of me converting to Judaism for a guy. So we didn't go off on dates. He didn't want to date me. I wasn't Jewish. I didn't want to date him. It was a conversion process. So we would see each other sometimes. We'd run into each other at the neighborhood Starbucks. We'd run into each other at Kiddush after services. We'd run into each other at some of the larger meals at people's houses. So we would chat, kind of get to know each other. There was definitely chemistry there, but we didn't want to date. And then it got to a point where like, I just was so busy with my life and everything that I didn't see him for like months and months. And so we actually didn't start dating until after my conversion. I moved away to California, and it was a couple months after that we actually started to date, which is a whole other story. So we will get to that another time, but that's kind of the basic how we met. We met at a Shabbat dinner completely by accident and with horrible timing, or maybe perfect timing, depends on how you look at it. But we met at Shabbat dinner. Okay, next question. Stephanie asked if my husband and I discussed him converting to Catholicism. No, I was already Jewish before we started dating. That was not something that we were interested in discussing. I was already Jewish, he was Jewish, there's no reason to discuss anything else. I actually left the Catholic Church when I was 16, and like I had said, I started my first conversion process in my early to mid 20s. So yeah, I would not be interested in my husband if he wanted to be Catholic. Laura asked, do I have a spouse? Yes, I think we've just established that. Yes, I am married. He doesn't show up in the videos a lot because I generally film when he's not around. When he's around, I want to hang out with him. So that, and he does work a lot. And the whole like Jewish relationship dynamic, you know, he's at shul in the morning, he's at shul in the afternoons for services. Shul is the same as synagogue. So, and then during the day, he's at work. So when we do see each other, it's Shabbat, it's times, you know, I just want to focus on him. But yes, he is definitely a huge part of my life. He's around a lot, but I just don't film when he's around. Laura also asked a couple of questions about my education and how I feel about education. So she asked me, first, do I have a bachelor's degree? The answer is actually no, I do not have a bachelor's degree. I did go to college. I've got probably 170 hours of college credits. They just don't all add up to a degree. I enjoyed college very much. I did well in college. I just kept switching my major. I couldn't decide what I wanted to do with my life at the age of 20-ish. Surprise. So I left and I have considered going back. It just doesn't really seem worth it to me at this point to spend the money on a degree that at this point I really don't feel like I need. I have had jobs in the past that required higher level degrees. I've had jobs in the past that have paid extremely well that didn't require a degree. For me in my life, it doesn't seem like it's that necessary at this time. Now, should I choose to go back, I could finish off a degree in about a year to a year and a half. So it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But again, I just don't really see that it's that necessary for me in my life right now. Laura's second question was, do I believe in higher education? I'm not really sure what there is to believe in. I think it's fine if people want to get a degree. I also don't think that it's necessary to make a good living and have a good life. So I'm not really sure what there is to believe in. You know, I believe in God. I believe in, you know, I believe in God. I don't believe in higher education like that. I don't know. It's fine. Higher education is great. It definitely serves a purpose. It's important for a lot of things. Certain degrees, medical degrees, you know, things like that require that higher level, very specialized training. I definitely wouldn't want to go to a doctor who didn't have a degree, you know, that sort of thing. But I definitely don't believe that getting a degree is the only way to be successful in life. The highest paying job that I had required a high school diploma, and I was making 6 figures. And the job that I had that required the highest level degree, it required a master's degree. Other story, how I got that job. They just, you know, liked me a lot. You know, in the job description that they were asking for, they wanted someone with a master's degree. But anyways, I got that job. That was the lowest paying job that I had. And they actually lowered the salary even after I left for the person that they hired next who did have a college degree. So, I mean, a degree doesn't equal money. A degree doesn't equal success. But there are some jobs that if you want to have, you do need to get a degree. So as far as like my children, if they want to go to college, great. If they don't want to go to college, great. I just want them to be happy, successful people who can be independent and take care of themselves and their families. All right, Megan, you had a ton of questions. All right, so let's dive into yours. Were either my husband or I homeschooled? No, we were not. Neither one of us were. My husband grew up in Israel. It's not really common to homeschool there. I grew up in America. It is, I think most of you know how common it is to homeschool here. It's not like crazy common, but it's not crazy unusual either. So I think I would have loved being homeschooled, possibly depending on how it was done. I think I would have loved being unschooled. But yeah, I went to regular school, regular university, all that jazz. She also asked, do I have a salon that I can go to, or do I cut my own hair? So my hair is straight and boring. It doesn't really do a whole lot. So I do cut my own hair. I don't have to. There are definitely salon options that I can go to. There is a lady in our neighborhood who cuts hair in a salon that she has in her home. There's a friend of mine who lives in the next town over, and she also cuts hair in her home. Both of those options would be completely private, and I would feel completely comfortable going in there, letting my hair down and getting my hair cut, styled, whatever I wanted. That would be great. But because I don't need my hair to look that fantastic, and quite frankly, I've kind of cut my hair most of the time even before then, because it is just generally the style I choose is just very long, straight, kind of a basic cut on the bottom. So nothing too crazy there. I don't see the point in spending the money for something that I can really do myself nearly as well enough. Megan also asked, how and when did I start crafting? So I'm not totally sure. It's just kind of been my whole life. I know that my whole life I was always the person who was like, oh mom, don't throw that away. I need to take that for a project. And I would take anything out of the garbage and use it to create something. Like I remember when I was a kid pulling some stuff out of the garbage and being like, Mom, how could you throw this away? And I turned it into a bird that when you pulled a little lever, the wings would flap. Like I was just always really creative and crafty like that. The first kind of major craft project probably would be at my grandma's house when I was around 7. She helped me sew a quilt. She taught me how to sew. She helped me with cutting the fabric and showing me how to sew it together. And then I worked on sewing everything together, and then we stitched around and did the whole thing. Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. I still have that quilt. It's in storage right now, or else I would have loved to show it to you. I'm sure it'll pop up in a future video. My kids love to curl up in this blanket. My grandma also taught me how to crochet. I picked up cross stitching probably from my mom. I know she was a cross stitcher. I don't know if she actually taught me or if I just sort of started doing it. I took up like painting and oil pastels there for a little while, just kind of dabbling in everything my whole life. But yeah, crafting has just kind of always been a part of my life. Megan also asked, do I feel connected to my faith community while we're all stuck at home during the pandemic? Yes, I do. We've had some Zoom calls, which I haven't really been able to participate in. They do some Zoom classes again, which I haven't really been able to participate in. We do have a neighborhood WhatsApp group, which is just all the Jewish ladies in our neighborhood. So that's really nice. We can kind of chat in there a little bit. I also have friends that I do still see. We have one family in the neighborhood in particular that's like our family that we've been hanging out this entire time. And we run into people at the park a lot. It's been gorgeous weather lately, so kind of a bunch of moms have been all going to the park in the afternoon and hanging out on Shabbat afternoons. So yeah, we're definitely still keeping in touch. I've made it a point to make phone calls to people and just reach out a little bit more. So yeah, we're still definitely connected. Am I as connected as we would be if we were hanging out in person? Maybe, maybe not, actually. Because I think a lot of that in-person stuff, when you're just kind of seeing people at services for a minute or two, it's maybe more of a superficial connection, whereas now it's a lot more conversation. So yeah, I guess it's kind of a toss-up. Megan asked also, what fabric is coolest during the summer? So yes, because I'm wearing skirts and at least 3/4 length sleeves all year round, and I do prefer a maxi skirt, coolness matters. I've recently discovered linen. Linen is incredibly comfortable and very cool. So I think I'm going to be incorporating a lot more linen into my wardrobe, in particular during the summer months. So yeah, I would say linen for sure. I also really enjoy wearing cotton, just real fabrics. I don't like synthetic fabrics. I do have a ton of synthetic fabrics. They're just not as breathable or as cool in the summer, but they totally work. Sometimes beggars can't be choosers, right? On that note of fashion, Megan also asked if I have a capsule wardrobe, even though I dress the same way all year. I don't believe that I actually have a capsule wardrobe. I do have a fairly minimalist wardrobe. I've cut down a lot on what's in my closet and just really tried to keep it with pieces that I love. I do have a box of winter clothes that I will pull out only in the colder months, just because what's the point of even looking at them on my shelves if I can't wear them? So things like this sweatshirt, for example, that I'm wearing, a few sweaters and things that I will only pull out in the winter months. But other than that, yeah, all the clothes stick there all year round. Texas tends to stay very mild in the winters, so I'll still, 3/4 length sleeves in the winter when it's 75. Totally makes sense. The same 3/4 that I would wear in the summer. I also really enjoy cold weather, so to dress not as warm and dress more like I would all year round is very comfortable for me. Also in Texas, it tends to be very cold in the morning or at night, but then warm up a lot during the day. So layers are everything. I have a lot of sweaters that I can just kind of toss on and then take off later when the weather is a little bit warmer. Okay, Megan's final question was, when I first joined our synagogue, were there other women there who were able to help me when I first got married to keep kosher and keep the faith? So there's always someone to help you with those things. If you ever have questions or need someone to listen, there's always somebody to ask those questions. I'm still asking questions all the time. Like when we moved into this house and I wasn't sure how to kosher the stove, I was able to ask that question and get that help very easily. So yeah, there's always somebody to ask the questions to, but there wasn't someone necessarily when I first got married who was helping me with those things, because I really already pretty much knew them. Before I converted to Judaism, I needed to know how to keep the faith. I needed to know the laws. I needed to know how to live a Jewish life. I needed to know how to keep kosher and how to keep a kosher kitchen. So once I got married, that was just adding another person into the mix. It wasn't necessarily adding a whole lot of new responsibilities. There were a few. And before I got married, I took some classes with a rebbitzin, that is another name for a rabbi's wife, and she helped teach me those laws. And also we went through some things on like how to be a wife, how to be married, which was really nice. It's kind of like getting therapy before you even need it. And my husband did the same with a rabbi. So that is the answer to that question. Okay, moving along. Doreen had a few questions. All right, her first question was, what is my husband's occupation? My husband is a contractor, so he does mainly remodeling and roofing. Currently, he's remodeling our house, which I am so excited about. Yeah, that's what he does, roofing and remodeling. I help sometimes with some of the bookkeeping aspects, not really a whole lot. He's kind of a one-man show, which I appreciate because he knows that I am very busy with the kids and house and all of those things, and my own hobbies and interests, the baking business and such. Doreen also asked what was my occupation before I had children. So I've had many different jobs, a few different careers. Before we got married, like right before we got married, I was selling cars. Like if I would have stuck with that job, like literally one more week, I would have been a manager at the dealership. I was just on that trajectory, and I had to turn that position down because I was like, well, I'm actually getting married and moving, so I'll be quitting, give the job to somebody else. So before that job, I was working at a nonprofit. We worked directly with Child Protective Services to give the caseworkers supplies and support that they needed to help take care of the kids that they were working with. So I handled all of our in-kind donations, so anything tangible that people gave us, school supplies, clothing, diapers, all that sort of thing. I handled all of those things and got them to the caseworkers to give to the kids. I also handled our major drives throughout the year, like a toy drive in the winter season, where the caseworkers would request specific toys for specific children, and I would gather all of those toys from all of our donors and get them to the caseworkers so they could give to the kids, to our back to school drive, our coat drive, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it was a really fun job. I loved it. I'm super passionate about that. It was a great time. I also really enjoyed selling cars. The selling cars was also really fun. Totally different opposite ends of the spectrum there. But yeah, I've had a diverse job background. Doreen also asked, have I always lived in Texas? No, I have not always lived in Texas. I grew up on the East Coast, and for a while in my adult life, I moved to California, so I was also living on the West Coast. So I've kind of lived a little bit all over the country, left, right, and center. It's been great to have those different experiences, and I am definitely not opposed to moving somewhere else, though I am pretty happy here in Texas. All right, Arlene and many have asked about my conversion story. I think I mentioned in the beginning of this video that I will do a separate video about that. I really need to try to find the time to do that. And I apologize that it's taken me so long. It is just hard to find the time to film with kids. I don't know if this video shows up choppy at all or if my head moves around, but that is because I have to get up and help people and take care of things and check on kids and that sort of thing. They're just in the next room watching TV. They're totally fine, but they're still my responsibility. So yeah, when it comes to the conversion story though, I really do want to be able to sit down and focus on that and tell you guys the whole story. I don't want to have my thoughts all choppy during that story because that's when I start to forget things. On that note, Efrat has asked, do I let my children watch unsupervised TV, meaning whatever is on? No. We don't own a television. We're in a rental house right now, and the rental house does have a television. It's set up right now on Kids Netflix, so they can only watch what's on Kids Netflix. They also know what shows that I approve of them watching on there, and so they're in there, like, I know what they're watching. I know that they're watching, PJ Masks or this other, I forget what this other show is called. It's about this little kid who goes exploring different places. I don't know, it's kind of educational. So like, I know basically what they're in there watching, and I am popping in and checking to make sure that they're not anywhere that they shouldn't be on the television. But I also know my kids, and I know that they're not gonna do that. So It's totally fine for them to be there watching television without me watching right over them. It's not broadcast television, there's no commercials, so I'm pretty comfortable with all of that. Okay, Lisa asked, how hard is it to keep kosher in the rental home? It is not without its challenges. So I've already had to ask some questions like, oh, did I ruin this dish because I set it here and I didn't, I didn't ruin the dish. I did not ruin the dish. We're a little more limited on what we can cook, and it's been okay. I can still do anything on the stove and I can do anything in the oven that's dairy. So like today we're gonna make some baked spaghetti later. Last night we had nachos. What else? I've made some chili while we're here. There's definitely been a lot that I've been able to do. I don't feel super limited. I'm just having to be a little bit more creative. I tend to get sort of like draw blanks when it comes to meal planning anyways. Like I'm not good at just being like, oh, we like this, this, and this, So I think the biggest challenge of keeping kosher right now is the fact that I'm not going to the grocery stores. My husband is doing that because of the pandemic. So that's challenging for me, because when I go to the grocery store, that's when I get all my meal planning ideas. I'll see something on a shelf and be like, I'll see a jar of capers on the shelf and I'll be like, oh, I haven't made chicken piccata in so long. Let's do that. And then I can just grab everything for that and go home and make it. So here I'm just kind of like, well, I don't know what we eat. I've got a can of corn, So yeah, that's more my challenge with cooking right now. But yeah, cooking here so far hasn't been too big of a challenge. Now I will be cooking Thanksgiving here, and I'm gonna have to plan that very carefully. That could prove to be more challenging, but more only because I'll have one oven instead of two. I'm used to having two ovens to cook Thanksgiving because we have two ovens at our regular house, a meat oven and a dairy oven, and I just flip it so that they're both meat for that day. It means I have to kosher the oven before and then again after, but it's totally worth it to have the two ovens. So anyways, that's keeping kosher in the rental house. It's not too bad. I can still make all the kids' favorites. Okay, so it looks like we will need to take a break. This video is getting super duper long, so we're gonna take a break and we will come back next Monday with the other half of your amazing questions. So thank you all so much for being here today. Be sure to hit that like button if you haven't already, and be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss part 2 of this or any of my other future videos. I'd love to have you guys hang around. If you think of any more questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments below and we'll get that conversation going down there. I really appreciate it. I love chatting with you guys down there. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss part 2. I hope that you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in my next upload.